Round two of the slideshow. And we left off at the in the stairwell room. This is going to have a pretty good sized counter over here with one of those parabolic shaped aluminum wash tubs about 4 feet across, and then two smaller ones on the top. And left of the window here, there goes a front loaded washing machine, which we haven't bought. We bought a Samsung oscillating kind for use now. It does amazingly well. It just leans left and right, but it washes clothes with no radical motor sounds. It can't cost much to run it, but it does clean the clothes. And we don't pre-wash anything; we just put them right in it. And from the wash machine back, I'm off the screen with the pointer. Good off the screen. Back over here where you can't see it is going to be another CR full bath. All the CRs are full baths. You know, a shower or a sink, a toilet, water closet, whatever you want to call it. What does CR stand for? Besides comfort room, I mean. Oh well, we'll get to it later. Anyway, that was where we left off. This is a picture of the helical stairs the day they pulled the forms down. And you see there was paint from different previous uses on these forms. This was the original set of facings before we went to phenolic board. And the marine plywood here is not waterproof. I don't care what you call it, it's not waterproof, and they write marine plywood right on it and charge you more for it, but it is not waterproof. And what we're looking at here, these little spots, and all down around here and up here, that was rebar that went through the wall of this. There's like the stairs are down here, and then there's a wall all the way around them, inside and out. But to anchor a whole lot of rebar that's in this stuff, several layers around that curve, and closely spaced in the bottom, probably 2 to 4 inches. It would be about what the size of the grids are. But we had this cross rebar that was through the forms, and also some of it had like 5-inch long PVC pipe that spaced inside the outside form. I'm thinking that all these ones up here had PVC pipe. The ones at the bottom wasn't any PVC pipe down here because these forms are all put together with screws accessible after the pour. And the top up here, these had PVC pipes with through rods, that row up there. And there's short pieces of 3/4 phenolic board were screwed into the top of these forms. These forms are considered a one use because we're only using them one place on the property. So we just cut the original facings up, all the stuff that wasn't delaminated, and put the best side in, and made forms. It's a repetitive thing. There's one piece like this, a piece like that, a piece like that, and then these two little vertical pieces, and then these are cut to fit whatever shape it came out. But okay, these rods, they stuck out anywhere from 3 inches to a foot. We just picked them up off the floor and shoved them through the holes. And the pieces of rod that come down here and they're bent to match this angle, and they bend back for the toe kick, and then hooked to the bottom rebar. And then there's a whole nother layer of rebar up here, just under the notch in the stairs. But these things were hanging out, and they went by with a hacksaw, and you cut them all off to a 1/2 inch out, and that's going to help anchor the render a little bit. We were going to weld a wire mesh to them, but we decided just once we found out the way to do it with nails, that's the only way we do it anymore. This wall is rendered. This up here is in the process of being rendered. The beam is rendered. Nothing done to the ceiling, just the way the forms came down. And this is the shape in the next floor. When you come up here, this is the bottom edge of this, and if you're standing on the center of the stair tread, it's like 7 feet 2 inches. So you'd have to be running pretty fast or jumping up and down to run into it. And up in here, this is going into the spider beam room. This is a door. This black thing is the phenolic board that went over, that was a box made into the column for a future circuit breaker and a pool box, electrical pool box. There's 10 columns, all of them, 10 intercolumns. They all have that box on them. Saves wire. This is a door over here, standard 6'8" door, plus the thickness of the floor down here, so it's more than 6'8" as poured. And that goes into that central atrium. And this blue rag has been in about 10 pictures. I don't know what it is. It was a shirt. I don't know what it is now. Next. Oh, here we go. Got a good picture once. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. These were used upstairs to make the wall section thinner than the top and bottom beam. The plastic pipes for the top and bottom beam are 14 inches long, so you have a 14-inch thick beam, 2 feet high. The bottom ones are not as tall. They're like 18 inches or 16 inches tall. And the bottom ones have a square corner. That's this square corner here. So I know that's the bottom of the form. This is the side that faced the major form, because it gives you the inset. But the standard form would have been out here. And the bolt holes that run through this are in line with the holes that space the outer forms. So you have a plastic pipe between 2 of these. It goes through the dead air here and right through another 2 holes in the outer form. And we didn't make any real attempt to line the edges up on this. We just let them hang on the bolts. And when we stripped them down, they were just fine. First one was fine, and we don't argue with success. Anything that works, we try it one more time. As long as it's working, we keep trying. This hole here is in the actual major forms we used. Used them 36 pours so far. And I put new facings on them after pour 36 on about 7 of them. How many do we have? 10. We have 10. So there wasn't many that didn't need refaced. The facings for the other ones is up here. They're being used for floor. We don't like to leave big sheets of phenolic board laying around. It's too much temptation for somebody. When we get it in, we throw them down and we run Torx drive screws through the stack. You know, it's like maybe 3 pieces in a 2.5-inch screw, 2 corners. If you haven't got one of those Torx drive hand screwdrivers, you can take them out. And when you bury them things 3 inches into fairly hard wood, it takes a power tool to get them out. Or a wood brace. You can take them out in a wood brace. Okay, this is one of our stands. We call them stands. I don't know what anybody else calls them. Some people call them scaffold bucks in the U.S. when we were doing construction and industry. And they were also made out of wood. You got 1, 2, the third one's behind something. Actually, there's 4. 1, 2, and there's the top, and there's the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4 verticals and a diagonal. And we're going to see later that these are not sitting on the floor. They're sitting on a piece of cocoa lumber. A little short piece, 8 inches long, going underneath of it. And if you need to shim them, like if the concrete floor down here wasn't the right exact height, then the delaminated phenolic board is a little over 16 thick. You just rip off a few pieces and stick them under there. But the purpose for those wood blocks is to keep these support forms dry on the bottom if it had rain, because there was no, you're putting a roof is why they're up there. So anything that rains is going to come straight to the bottom of the house. So anyway, these things are on a block. And the block does 2 purposes. It keeps them dry on the bottom so it doesn't wick water up and invite the bugs. But also gives you a place to put a pry bar underneath of it to spring them up a little bit. And then when you pull those, you know, I don't know what you call them, bed pieces, support blocks, whatever, you can snatch them right out. Or you can take a thinner piece and put against the end of it and hit it with a 2-pound, like a 1 kilogram, they call it massa. It's a square-ended maul, like a small sledgehammer. But the massa will knock them things right out of there in about 2 licks. Once you get one out, the rest of them come right out. And those are made out of experienced cocoa lumber. So I don't know how many's in this room, and you can see they're less than 2 feet this way, and these top pieces are around 6 feet. So 3 spaces into 6 feet, that's around 2 feet on center here. They've got a piece right on across from one end to the other, tying them together that way. And there's some pieces, well, they would be at the end of this. We can't see them, but maybe that's one right there. There's another layer going the other way, tying these things into a grid. We didn't need these for support. What we needed them for was to stand on, to put screws from the top of the stand into the sleepers on top of it, so that when we screwed down the phenolic board, it wouldn't just follow the shape of these things. They're not necessarily flat. They're the same thickness. We match the thickness to the ones near it. So there may be a difference in the thickness over here at one end to the other. I would think it'd be 3/8 of an inch or less. I'm not so sure you need quite this many. But this is all the ones we had made for doing the 10 rooms. Because we'd have one being set up, one sitting for a few days to get some strength to it before we took the formwork out from underneath of it. And also we were pouring 2 of the 10 wedge-shaped rooms. We'd pour them in pairs. And the last one, we had a little delay for some reason or other, so we stripped the forms out from underneath the oldest one and put it up. We did all 3 of them in the same day. That was 84 plus a little bit bags of cement, and 2 times 84, 168 gravel, and 3 times it, 3 and 240, 256. I don't know, 262 maybe, of rock. So the mix is 1, 2, 3. It's a mix with our stone that we use, the type of stone we use. It should hit 8,500 psi. We do not put excess water, really. It was hard to get them not to, but we got past that on the pads that went underneath of the foundation pad, just to make them all the same depth. Because we had cracking and other stuff on that little thing. It was just like people put rock in or gravel in the bottom of a hole to level it out. It's just we use concrete. It's not meant to be structural. We don't care if it cracks and breaks and looks like gravel, because it could have been gravel. But we wanted to start off with an even flat base. And so once they saw that as it dried or cured, actually cured over like 2 or 3 days, it got a bunch of cracks in it. And we told them that's really not what you want to do. And then on the first column, we went too dry, too much the other way, and we got some honeycomb. But then when they pulled the forms off, they fixed that, while it was still damp, basically. And, we leave that, like if we pour on Monday, we take the forms off on Wednesday. It's about 2 days. And so the render stuck to it perfect. And our normal procedure on columns and things like that, we haven't got anybody that will spray them down, and we're working out of water pumped out of a hand pump well, no hose, anything like that. So trying to get those big columns kept wet wasn't going to happen. So we couldn't get them wet the first one. So on number 2, we went to the backup plan. Coach Saver white latex paint. It never came off. It's still on them. If you were looking for paint to put on concrete, I guess we could recommend it, because we weren't any kind of particular when we put it on there. We just want to keep the moisture in the concrete while cured. And we got no cracks in any of the columns. Any place we used it, we had no cracks. So that idea was a keeper. At least as far as we're concerned, it's a keeper. Oh, the room you're in, I saw what she calls this the dining room. I don't know why you need a 30-foot diameter dining room, but she's not here to ask. Let's try another picture. Well, this is just another looking down thugh the, I think we were standing here, now we're standing there. like just rotated around. I didn't know if the camera was actually taking pictures because it's really dark in there. It's not as bright as this picture makes it appear. The light's supposed to come from this ceiling up here, which is covered completely in phenolic board. This is also the air exhaust for our passive cooling. You see little bits of daylight and cracks between the boards. The air rushing through that cools the house. So it ought to work really well once all the plywood's gone out of there. But it's pleasant in there right now in March and April. I've been there other Marches and Aprils. This is a completely different place in the building, but I think it's looking from the stairwell room in. And this is the kind of holes we have that the air can escape from. You lay a piece of paper off of it, it just floats off to the side. Put a drawing on the table to try to work, and it blows out all the pieces. We have the welded wire mesh now, so it can't get outside and get down in the field anymore. It slows up when it gets near one of those outside windows for some reason. You can stomp on it and then catch up to it. Yeah, we got a room. Okay. These are the forms stacked up that we did the spider beam with. There'll be 20 of them. They're a one-sided form backed with cocoa lumber, 3/4 phenolic board. And what's behind that is her pigeon loft. So they were in bedroom 5. This is bedroom 4. This is bedroom 3. We know they're bedrooms, other than the fact that the forms are stacked there, because you've got a short wall on this side of the door, and there's a much longer wall on the right-hand side of that door, because that's a full bath. And backed up to it, in the bedroom on the other side, is a bathroom as well. They have no connection on the water lines, drain lines, gray water, black water. They're all independent. However, we can drill a hole through this wall if we have to sometime and connect the incoming water lines, one room to the other if we need to. It's just something we can do, and we wanted to put a wide side on one side of the door and a narrow side on the other side of the door. And then that gives you a wall between this and the other bedroom where we can shift this door over that way. It gives you a bathroom in one corner and a place for the bed on the other side back here. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. And again, we got render on this wall, no render here, just the ever-present paint. And we haven't done anything to the ceiling. It's only going to get a skim coat. That's all it needs. This little space up here, we just haven't quite figured exactly what we're going to do. There's electrical conduit that comes through the floor. It's got to come down beside this for light switches down here that we forgot to put into these things. Actually, these were poured when we were in the States, and nobody thought we might need a light switch in a room. So we do have a place up here we put in after. We put this floor ceiling thing in after those, it's sitting on them. So we thought about putting the light switch in, but didn't think about it when they were working on their own. Man, I really like taking pictures of that. It does show how these plastic pipes are in the wall. Other than that, that's not much. This is not a really good example because I can't see the line where the two pieces of form came together up here. But when you have pictures of your house like this before the render, if it's poured concrete, you know how far these through pipes were off the floor because they're the same dimensions as the form. You know how high the horizontal rebars are because they were all tied in a quick build jig, just some notched boards, notches where the bars are. So we know exactly where the horizontal bars are. So we know there's 10 inches between them, and we know it ran above that bolt. It'd be 10 inches to the next horizontal bar. but you have to be able to figure where the vertical bars can't be. In other words, there's no vertical bar that's in line with one of these holes right here. And we know the spacing on these holes, and we know the spacing on the bars because they were by the notched boards. So we can actually figure out, we can take a felt tip pen, if we wanted to put a hole in the wall here for something, we can take a felt tip pen and draw lines where the rebars inside the concrete are by having a picture, not this picture, but a picture where you can see the parting line of the two forms, because there's drawings for the forms that shows you where the rebar is inside that form. And also, these holes here are shown on the same drawing. It's a drawing of the form, but the forms are shown set up with the rebar and everything in it. So if you have a pretty good collection of pictures of where these things are, and you did any kind of decent setup on your vertical bars, you can draw your bars on the wall anytime you want. The horizontal bars, because we use notch boards that had difference in spacing, we know exactly where those are. These ones here could have been just laid up. They're the second layer. It could have been put up there just to clear something, to duck around something. They may be, if they show they're over top this pipe, that means they're bent around it one way or the other. But we don't know which way from that. This is what it looks like when you take and you just plug a wall into a wall. The form was square-ended, ended right here. So when they put this wall up, this wall ran back to it, hit that form someplace. And then you have this little ragged edge here. We can fill that with render. Probably did fill that with render when we rendered the wall. See, here's a form line down below the camera. Oh, that's not doing. I wonder how much of that's screwed up. Anyway, you can see if there was a form parting line here, there'd be a marking in the concrete from the form. Lost my train of thought. Oh well. Anyway, you can. The form line was just said this is not rendered. This is the actual poured concrete, same as that is. The render will have a rougher texture. We made it like a sand texture with a rubber float. That way it'll give a good grip for the skim coat. The other thing it does, if you watch videos and particularly listen to videos of hollow block houses with render on them, and this poured concrete would do it even worse, you have echoes in the rooms. That's from they take a hollow block wall, and there's virtually no echo because the walls are so unlevel compared block to block, and it just the texture of the blocks, the texture of the mortar, the unfilled head joints. It gives a lot of place for sound to get in and out of at different distances. So it's a wave propagating, and it returns its echo at a different time according to how far the sound traveled into the things in the wall, the dings in the wall, and the whatever. So when they put on the render, if you have a rough surface render like you're going to use skim coat on it, you get a little bit of an echo, but the roughness of that texture, it's probably 1.5 millimeters or 2 millimeters, but there's just lines everywhere from the trowel. Then you don't get a whole lot of echo. But when you put the skim coat on there, it's like hollering in a barrel. I was against skim coat for a long period of time, and we tried some a little bit of smooth finish to see what it would do. And we got a little bit of an echo problem, but not near as much as you would think. The reason being, if it bounces off a wall, the walls are not parallel to each other like a rectangular room. The outer wall, the 24-foot long wall on the outside of the wedge, can bounce off of this shorter wall here. But you see, a lot of it is opening. There's not a lot of it. This wall, any sound that goes through here goes right on through. But there's a place above it up here that is parallel to the outside wall, and this could echo back and forth. And I assume that it does. But because our walls can't out from each other, the distance from wall to wall is constantly changing, and it changes a lot. Like a couple of feet over the depth of the room, and that seems to mitigate a lot of the echo. So we're going to skim coat the inside, but we weren't going to originally. I think we're going to stop here and pick it up because I've gone way too far for one video. The idea is I was thinking about making shorter videos and see what that does to view count. I've not managed to do it yet, and I don't know how many pictures are left. Okay, so y'all have a good day. We're going to come back in a minute while all my cracker boxes are stacked up for a tripod.